public service announcement in the middle of recording. Zul, Dana Lu, was struck by a bubble of evil and had her house's roof removed by the wind. And so we, as a Wheel of Time community, are all pitching in to help get Senbui down there with some thatch. So dig around in your couch for some Tyron silver marks or some Andoran crowns or whatever you happen to have laying about, and go find the GoFundMe link that will be in the episode description. Because Zul is definitely one of the people who makes the all-pervasive collective awesomeness of this community a thing. Zul is one of the common denominators from Dusty Wheel to WatCon to Wat Spoilers chat. Like, Zul's everywhere, so be everywhere for Zul.
The number of things we get right on this podcast is much higher because Zul is in the chat most of the time, calling us out when we make mistakes in the moment.
Absolutely. We're only exaggerating slightly.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Oh, I do have to correct myself once. I was saying CoT Swain was 400 years old, but she's 300 years old, give or take. There was an episode where we were talking about her age in an old podcast.
Oh, yeah, you were doing math about how her teacher could have been around for art.
Right. Yeah. I was way off on
give or take 400 years.
Give or take 100 years. 400 years, give or take 100, you know.
Yeah.
My argument still applies, though. She could have been around for some really old shit going on. I now have to go back and recheck that.
You're going to find a way more interesting story.
I should look and see.
Some actually much more interesting pocket of Randland history.
Speaking of Randland, do you want to dig into this incredibly fibrous portion of the Crossroads of Twilight prologue?
There's so many names in the salad. So many. We've got Cian and Sarin in the same telling off. It's terrible.
This is definitely a kale name salad.
Oof. It's an uncooked kale salad.
Yeah,
not even the
uncooked.
decency to cook it with olive oil. Just rubbed with salt and served.
Yeah, so the notes on this one took quite a while. I think I was estimating it took me about 2 hours to get through these chapters, which is highly unusual for me. But it's 3 POVs is our plan. We hope to get through Gabrelle, Yukiri, and Gawyn today. So one is a black tower, the other is a white tower, and then sort of outside the rebel camp.
In the cheese town.
In the cheese town.
We're going to the cheese town.
Why are Gawyn's POVs the most ridiculous of all of the POVs?
Because it's Gawyn.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, and chat's just gonna get us started on the name fuckery. Gabrelle, not Gabrielle.
Okay.
We're gonna screw up all the names. Okay, everyone just check your corrections for names right at the door. Editing Aradia, don't even bother. Just allow the errors to flow. You guys have no idea how much editing I do to get the names right sometimes. Not this time. Not this time. I'm telling you right now.
Oh, Jesus. Gabrelle. Okay, I think I can do that.
So I guess I should read us in, huh?
Yep, you should definitely read us in.
Okay. I think just the first paragraph, because honestly, so much description. There's so much description and exposition and back reminders in this chapter. Guys, okay, so Seth and I were pre-gaming slightly before we got started. This chapter is really, really dense, and then it's paragraphs of skipping because it's just descriptions. Like, this is some prologue-y prologue today.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to recap at this point. You've got millions of readers. The book hasn't come out for 2 years, at least. People haven't necessarily done the reread. You got to do some exposition to remind those people that this is where you're going. But then, of course, you also have to throw in more names than you've ever seen in any other scene ever.
Because foreshadowing.
Just to confuse the hell out of them. Yeah.
Rude. Okay. Gabrelle enjoyed her rides through the wintry woods with Logain and Tovann. He always let Tovann and her follow at their own pace in the semblance of privacy, so long as they did not lag too far behind. The two Aes Sedai seldom spoke more than absolutely necessary, though, even when they truly were private. They were far from friends. In fact, Gabrelle often wished Tovann would ask to stay behind when Logain offered these outings. It would have been very pleasant to be really alone. Mood.
Okay, I think to start this section, I want to talk about the relationship between Gabrelle, Tovann, and Logain, and where you think it is.
All right.
Okay, so you've got Gabrelle and Tovann. Well, let's actually start with Logain and Gabrelle, right? Because they're sleeping together,
Yes.
right?
Yes, she seduced him. It's been a whole thing.
And she says she doesn't love him. But something happens when they're making love where they get all in each other's heads because the bond slips.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the other relationship is, of course, Logain and Tovann. And he trusts her, but they're not sleeping together.
Does he trust her, though?
He doesn't. That's what I'm trying to figure out, right? That's something we can get into as this chapter goes on. He's relaxed around her, and Gabrelle seems to think he trusts her.
Yeah, it's interesting how he seems to bind the two of them together despite how much the two of them clearly do not see each other as being alike in any important way. I guess he just doesn't feel too much threat from her, but I'm with Gabrelle on feeling like how on earth is he that gullible? Because she seems like a person who would have a very hard time not threat displaying around him all the time, you know?
Right. As the leader of the people who tried to, basically capture and gentle them again.
And as a red fundamentally.
Right.
So it's like, how is she that good at mental subterfuge?
Or has she just totally given in and been like, you know what? This is fine. I support him now. Because, but I think there's an argument for it. I think there's an argument that she has actually been 100% is on Logain's side from here on. And he can sense that in her. And I think Gabrelle just doesn't understand that.
Ooh. She does have thoughts about how she wants Elaida taken down more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
If Logain would let her. I think she also thinks about how she's going to use the Black Tower to bring Elaida down. Am I right about that? Does she think that?
That rings a bell to me. Yeah. I don't know if she thinks that, but somebody does. And that should make sense that she'd be the right person.
I feel like there's a moment where she's determined about that, which if I'm right about that, that definitely is weeks in the past at this point. So she might actually not feel like a threat to him by now, and Gabrelle is just missing out on it because it's entirely about Tovan's beef with Elaida and has nothing to do with tower politics or gentling men or even Red Aja business. It's completely a personal grudge that she's out of the loop on. That's not a take I had considered, even though I'm literally pulling up mental quotes that support it.
all I'm saying is I put the idea in your head and you're pulling up support for it without me doing anything. So I'm pretty that gives me some pretty high confidence about it. So yeah, digging into the chapter a little bit. Well, I guess then the other question is we didn't really talk about Gabrelle and Tovann, right?
Yeah, they are in a very uneasy sort of détente, I guess, because they're not. There's been some amount of leadership in terms of the sisters having a plan for how they're going to deal with their captivity, the 51 sisters, right? They're all kind of, all right, we're going to make friends with our Ashaman, and we're going to do that. So there's a certain camaraderie, but they are very much not sharing notes on Logain either.
Right. Because I don't think Gabrelle knows what's going on in Tovan's head, and vice versa.
Yeah, it seems like they're both trying to guess at it without letting the other know.
They're like playing the games of houses in their own little like threesome there.
Yeah, so there's definitely 3 distinct parties. There's no teams. Because Gabrelle and Logain are not a team. They are a situation. Because he's definitely not telling her everything. She's so overconfident about how, like, he tells me everything. I'm like, bitch, please.
No. Yeah, no way.
Like, come on. You think you're so wise in the ways of men and women? I think you know that there's this thing called adults can keep secrets. You're keeping secrets. Like, he's blowing your mind with incredible sex, and you're not telling him everything. So.
But men are simple creatures. They can't keep secrets.
Frowning in non-binary.
So digging into the first paragraph after the first paragraph, which would be the second paragraph, if I can count correctly.
That does sound right. We are both college graduates.
Oh, man, we have both had a week. And if you want to hear more about that, I'm sure you stuck that at the end of the episode.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So excuse us if we get a little loopy during this episode. So in that paragraph, there's 2 mentions of a large, long-winged bird very high that she can barely see overhead. Seanchan, Scout, Rocket.
No shit.
It's gotta be, right?
Oh, shit. I never even thought of that. I'm just like, bird. Because I am literally her. Plants and minerals stay in one place while you study them. I asked you books and manuscripts. I've always loved this line. Minerals will stay in one place. This is why I study geology. I don't care about birds.
Hey, you study geology, know the minerals move pretty fast too, just on a different time scale.
It's true. I did break my brain to be able to think in terms of deep time and to not understand petty human concerns. I did do that.
It's kind of weird to think of rock flowing like liquid, just at a much slower time scale.
Fluids are fluids, and fluids must flow, regardless of time scales and tiny human brains, you know?
Is that a quote from somewhere?
I'm riffing off of the Lorax. Business is business, and business must grow regardless of crummies and tummies, you know?
I was like, that's got to be Dr. Seuss.
I had the entire book memorized when I was 2. And that line is, it just ages so well. I wish it would become obsolete, but somehow it keeps coming up. Anyway. So there's 2 mentions of this bird.
Yeah, just in that paragraph, high overhead flew a long-winged bird of some sort, an eagle perhaps. Birds were not her strong point. Plants and minerals stayed in one place. And then just 2 sentences later, she could barely make the bird out at that height in any case, but an eagle fit the landscape. So it's not...
Well, I will...
It's not a home run on that, Seanchan. It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. They aren't anywhere near here yet. But they do have intelligence about the tower when they make the proposal for the attack on the tower. They do have some intelligence about it by then. So also related to misidentifying eagles, I totally saw a turkey buzzard today on the drive home. And I'm very excited because that means that they're starting to come back and they're my favorite bird. And they were overwintering in Mexico. And it is a sign of spring that they are starting to arrive. And I've been mistaking eagles for them for days and having to be very careful to be like, is it an eagle or is it a turkey buzzard? And finally today, I saw one that was definitely a buzzard, not an eagle. Also not a Seanchan Scout, which is fortunate because that would suck.
I mean, yeah, it was just a thought seeing those 2 and the fact that she could barely see it. And, high up, you might not be able to realize actually how high it is because of, weird perspective tricks. And if you think it's a bit smaller than it is, it might look closer.
Yeah.
Which explains why it's hard to see because it's actually much further up than she thinks it is.
With a person on it that she absolutely does not see.
Yep. Yep. So we get a description of the Black Tower. It's getting bigger. It's pretty established. There's hundreds of men.
She's been there for 2 weeks. Another reorientation to our timeline. We get her being shocked that Logain is experiencing symptoms of PTSD in terms of hypervigilance. She's shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
Shocked. Right, yeah.
Can't imagine why he would feel that way.
Let's remember what he went through: getting captured, gentled, hauled off to the White Tower, sentence, escaping with Suan.
Being depressed as hell on the road, managing to get his power back, but then having it threatened to be taken away again, cast out into the cold to find his way to the Black Tower, where now he feels like he's surrounded by enemies on all sides. Can't imagine why he has hypervigilance. Not at all.
I also love her description of the warder bond and how, like, it's worse. This bond required her to obey. So it was not the same as a warder bond, really. And I'm like, wait, the warder bond totally requires people to obey.
It offers the opportunity for that compulsion, but it doesn't have the same kind of instant obedience to suggestion. It's like they somehow turned that up really strongly for reasons that are incredibly murky and not at all problematic.
It's just more absolute, like, compulsion, basically.
Yeah, it's like every suggestion is a compulsion, which we don't see with the warders. We see the warders rolling their eyes and walking away from their Aes Sedai suggestions all the time. It's just that the Aes Sedai have this lever that they could choose to push. It's like with the wife bond that they're using here, like that button is just permanently engaged, which is really screwy. I don't understand why that was necessary, but yeah, it is interesting to see how she's defending the warder bond, but also inadvertently telling us how awful it is.
Right.
Like, this is one of our most direct descriptions of, like, well, the warder bond can't do this exactly, asterisk, semicolon, parentheses.
Right.
Which is, like, obviously
exactly
what's being done to them is horrible, but, like, what they've been doing to warders is so many shades closer to exactly that than you've been led to believe for all of these books, maybe.
And she does wonder why they don't give the command, you will do nothing to harm the Black Tower. She's wondering, like, why don't they just tell me not to do that, and then I could never harm the Black Tower. I honestly don't. I don't know. I don't think Logain wants to constrain them that much. I feel like that's too much like compulsion. He's using it to keep them from escaping and keep them safe. He's not using it to control their every movement, you know?
You think that's his motivation? I had a different explanation.
Oh, please show it.
I like yours. My alternative explanation that I thought of only while doing my notes, because before I was always confused by this, is that he is suspicious of what's going on with Taim's men, and he wants an ace in his sleeve, even if it's a wild card. He just doesn't quite want to write the Aes Sedai off as allies just yet. He doesn't know what's coming, and he just wants that little flexibility. Also, so that way they can potentially save themselves. Like, sure. I feel like he's leaving an escape hatch for whatever's coming.
Right. And if you can't harm the Black Tower, what happens if Logain gets captured by Taim and Taim says, I am the Black Tower, you can't harm me?
What if Taim says, I'm going to mind control all of you to go attack the White Tower?
Right.
Like, I feel like he's leaving an escape hatch just in case shit goes extra sideways. But I like the idea that there's part of him that's like, well, of course I'm not going to compel them. That would be gross. I know the weave the way I know it, and it's gross for reasons that are not my fault, but I'm going to behave within that in the most honorable way I can justify. I like adding that to him because he's such a complicated character we don't see enough of, and I would like to make him even more complicated. That's excellent.
No, I feel like he has a code, right? That's what makes him the good guy in the Black Tower. He has a code, and his code includes not forcing more than he has to, more than basically imprisoning them because they came to kill him, so he's, Uno reverse, I'm going to imprison you instead of you imprisoning me. But that's all he's using it for. He's not saying you can't fight back, you can't, use your own free will. He's certainly not forcing any of them into his bed.
Right. And he knows that something is coming. Like, at the very end of this POV, he's riding to war. Like, he's expecting the other shoe to drop, because this thing with Taim and his classes is like, that's gonna have to get dealt with. Like, right.
There's a war coming in the Black Tower. The Black Tower is clearly splitting, and this rot needs to be expunged before the last battle can happen.
Yeah, and you'll note also that none of the Aes Sedai are bonded into Taim's faction. So that's another reason to keep the Aes Sedai as unconstrained as he safely can, because none of them are on the other side of that team yet.
Also, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, aren't none of the Aes Sedai in the 51 black? Wasn't it this like weird? Didn't we discover that it was this weird, crazy thing?
Alviarin says she will make sure that none of the ones that are sent are black because she knows the plan's doomed, and she wants to keep her assets unencumbered.
So that's where you really have this uniting of two groups in which we know there are no dark friends, and that really becomes the core of the new Black Tower.
It's unfortunate that they mistrust each other until the Fourth Age over that.
Yes, yeah, but how great is that Alviarin helped create the Dark Friend free Black Tower? Way to shoot yourself in the foot there.
Something about optimizing so hard that you break the system completely.
Right. You should have sent some Dark Friends there because they would have been able to infiltrate both sides and betray from the inside. But
of course, Alviarin wouldn't take Dark Friend male channelers seriously just because they're Dark Friends. Like, they're still male channelers. Of course, she's going to write them off as being useful to her plans.
I don't know about that. I mean, she worships the Forsaken, and those are male channelers.
Are they human, though?
Yeah, not according to the Dark Friends.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're certainly human. They're the epitome of human. They're incompetent humans in many cases. Just, not incompetent, but arrogant.
Yeah. Humans full to the brim with hubris. Okay, yeah, so here's the section that I thought was akin to autistic masking. It's when Gabrelle is thinking about this bond mind reading thing that she's working on with Logain, and Logain glances at her and she's thinking about everything. And it was such a delicate dance trying to control her emotions to present just the right responses.
I highlighted that too.
It's like taking the test for the shawl, only the test goes on and on and on and on. This is autistic masking in a neurotypical world, summed up. It just is.
Right. Yeah, but it's almost in the reverse, though, because while she's trying to hide her emotions, masking in a lot of cases is trying to express the proper emotions that other people are expecting you to feel.
Right.
And so you have to predict what they're expecting and then move your face in a way such that you actually do express that emotion in a way that other people expect. Right. I think that's one of the things that I find is when I just relax and I take in information, a lot of times people are like, why are you so angry? And I'm like, I'm not. I find what you're saying very interesting because I have resting bitch face.
Yes, exactly. Your resting bitch face is high.
It's high. Yeah. Exactly. People are. And so if I don't mask by showing positive emotion on my face, which is not something I'm naturally inclined to do, people often find and think that I'm upset or unhappy with the current circumstances, or not enjoying the information they're taking in. Right? Yeah, not listening to the story. All those things.
Exactly. So yeah, she's doing that, but from a different place to a different end.
Right.
But using the same mechanism. So if you can vibe with how she's feeling here, like, translate that to all the weird nerdiness in real life, and there's a bit of an analogy to be had. And I love also part she's like, he might have been likable if not for what he was. Like, she is totally falling for him.
Oh yeah, already has.
She is,
just hasn't admitted it.
Yeah, like there is such a subtext rom-com potential here, except that the situation is so dire.
I mean, I just have to read this since you bring it up. It's another page or two later, but sometimes when they shared a pillow, he let the masking slip. To say the least, the results were ... devastating.
Devastating.
There was no calm restraint then, no cool study, not much of reason at all.
It's problematic, but it's hot.
It's that mind-to-mind connection, right? Mm-hmm. That I think later we see Pavara and Androl connect with.
Yeah, they go for intellect first, and presumably they'll figure out the physicality later. Yeah, we definitely get a better look at what that's like. But yeah, it's like...
Well, it's also Brandon Sanderson writing it, so he makes it as intellectually crude as possible.
Yes, and as articulated through every last mechanism as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon.
Don't get me wrong, I love him as an author. But there are certain things where you can just tell his morality is preventing him from writing it a certain way.
Yeah. Whereas Jordan is doing, this is one of his least cut to black references to sex in the entire series. Like, it's one of the few times he gets to write a sex scene is through someone remembering a time they had sex. Like, that's the only way he can do it. Anything more direct, and it's got to be full on fade to black. But this, he gets to say,
and yet we know a bunch of Jordan's kinks.
Yeah. I mean, as he discovered, playing the Domani turns out to hide many surprises and a few pitfalls. If you write this many words, you're going to reveal things about yourself you didn't mean to reveal. Either that or you're going to make it your entire genre personality, and it will absolutely not be your personality because it's literally your bread and butter. Mm-hmm. And that's a completely different can of worms. But with Jordan, I think we can just infer what we want.
I'm doing that right now.
But yeah, I like the fact that she is falling for him despite her inclinations. That is always a fun plot, is a spy to lovers kind of thing. It's fun. Especially because Logain's so honorable. It's really excellent.
Mm-hmm. So here's the, in between those two is some conversation about the relationship between Tovann. So Gabrelle is watching Tovann, and Tovann loathed men who could channel as deeply as any red Gabrelle had ever met. Right? That's what she's thinking. Yet Tovann all but simpered at him. So that's where I think Gabrelle is just taking her preconceived notions of Tovann and being like, oh, there's no way she'd fall for him, when she totally is.
Well, and it's not the same.
No.
Tovann is falling for him as the leader who has her salvation.
Right.
Which is a very different kind of love and worship, and not something that Gabrelle is likely to notice when she has such a hard time noticing the very simple form of sexual love that she's created. Of course, she's not going to notice like a cult fangirl for a cult that literally doesn't even exist yet. Because Logain hasn't tried to start a cult, but Tovann is like first in line to be a groupie for that shit. If this headcanon is accurate.
Is correct, right? I'm liking it. They mention Desandre and Lamai had ordered everyone to achieve cordial relationships with the Ashaman. I was just trying to figure out I couldn't tell who they were, why they were significant. I looked their names up. I don't know why they're the leaders giving orders right now. I mean, obviously, Tovann isn't, because they got them captured.
Yeah, there's a conversation earlier, last time we were in these two's POV, where Gabrelle says, the two of us have to submit to, I think Lamai is who she names. Like, we have to publicly submit to her, because otherwise we're 51 sisters, each going her own way. The only way for the embassy to stay together is for us to formally hand our leadership over to her. And now we're jumping forward 2 weeks, and Lamai took that leadership, ordered them to all achieve cordial relations, and that's kind of the state of the union. And apparently Desandra is part of the ruling council of captive Aes Sedai sisters. But that's the only relevance of them that I can think of. I don't see them ever coming up again that I can recall. Throwaway sisters.
Yeah, more information. How could Logain sit at the other end of that bond and take that smile as anything other than fraud? Because it's a legitimate smile.
And it is a bit predatory. It's still in line with Tovann's personality. She hasn't changed fundamentally. She's not doing a subterfuge. She's just changed her loyalties.
Mm-hmm. Right.
She hasn't changed her personality.
She was always very loyal to Elida until she realized Elida sent her into a bad situation. And then, transfer that to Logain and keep going.
Yeah. I really like that as an interpretation for her. It makes so much more sense than her somehow attempting to compete with Gabrelle's strategy, which just is not. That makes no sense. But cult follower, willing to go to the ends of the earth to achieve your ends so that you'll achieve my ends someday, that fits. So then news arrives in the form of Mishraila.
Yep, that's where I am. Okay, cool.
So Mishraila shows up and just does some casual slut shaming, and Logain's like, I will cut you if you say that again. To which Gabrelle is like, "Aw, he's jealous. He's defensive."
Mishrael is a dark friend. He's got the private lessons with Taim. He's on his side, right? Yeah. So
of course he's a slut-shaming asshole.
Right, of course.
And we learn that Logain has gained permission to go on recruiting missions. And there's a strong pressure for him to not go on recruiting missions and instead to join the classes at the palace. And he's like, "No, I'm going to go do the common laborer's work of acquiring people so that way I can build my own private army inside your stupid bullshit army."
But do you know where he actually ends up going? To find Rand.
Right.
And that's where he's present at the Prologue attack.
Right. He's present at the manor house where my hands happens.
Right. But that's because he actually goes to find Rand and basically say, "Hey, Taim is doing bad shit in the Black Tower. You may want to come deal with it," basically.
Yeah.
So this is Logain going out to get help, is what this is.
Yes.
This isn't him going to recruit.
This is him going to Rand and being like, "Dude, this is the absolute last chance you have to save this from becoming a bigger problem than just not starting it in the first place. Literally your last chance, bro. Like, I'm telling you, I need help. I can't keep a lid on this anymore. Taim is insane."
Mm-hmm.
And then Rand's like, "Hold my beer." And it's a whole thing, and Logain is left to deal with it on his own. But yeah, no,
Right.
You're right. This is him sneaking out to go get help from the only authority that he has to appeal to.
I think this was my proudest find in today's notes. Is I was like, no, he's not going out to do it. I was like, we know what he's doing, and it's not to recruit. Although it does make sense, he needed to do some recruiting from his own folks. But that, I think we hear later that Taim was never able to do all the recruiting. He was never going to filter everybody who came into the Black Tower.
Oh, yeah.
Even from the beginning.
But there's supposed to be a hierarchy. It's supposed to be underlings getting people like them. And Logain's been like, "No, I actually would like to get cool people and give them my card in addition to Taim's card. Thank you." Yeah, and they all think it's weird. It's one of those weird affectations that he's willing to do the grunt work. So it lets us know he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah.
And then immediately after that, we get the thought, she would have sworn he told her everything when they were lying together. Meanwhile, having no idea why he's going recruiting. It's like,
right?
No, he told you nothing.
The way you tell him nothing, Gabrelle. You guys are having an excellent affair, and he thinks that you are a great break from thinking about things. Okay? Why is this complicated? You're how many 100 years old?
Uh-huh. The next thing she brings up is the next thought she has that I thought was interesting was she had not detected any evidence of insanity in Logain, and she watched for it as hard as she watched for signs he was about to channel. And that's one thing that's always interesting is Logain always seemed to be very special at resisting the taint. And I think later he says something about how his insanity is linked to his need to be a leader.
His need for greatness. Specifically, his drive for greatness, to have adoration and power and prestige. His desire to be the Dragon Reborn, really. Like, those two madnesses are wound together.
So could you say that he went insane a long time ago and it's just he's able to function with that insanity?
Yeah, I feel like that is what happened because he had to pass through the dark night of the soul where he was gentled and then he got a second lease on life. So there's a certain, like, yeah, he is supposed to be great. He was wrong about it being as the Dragon Reborn, but there's still a path to find greatness somewhere over the horizon. And like, that is a sane enough path that he functions normally. Even to a sister who's bonded to him, he seems sane because his drive is for something reasonable and understandable. It's so strange how he has such a functional form of madness.
So yeah, that's one theory. I mean, I think there's other theories, right? That you can talk about how does gentling affect his madness? Did it reduce it? Did it delay it? Did it give his brain a chance to heal? Maybe wipe away some of that madness because he hadn't gone fully mad yet, and so it was like a reset.
I don't think it works like that. I think you're stuck with the damage that got done.
It seems to be that way after the cleansing, right? That all the men,
yeah.
Remember, Nynaeve has to go in and pry off those black spidery creatures of slime that live on their brains, and that's how she heals them.
Yeah. So I feel like, but I mean, who knows? Maybe like spending time gentled and unable to kill yourself, those spines do sort of unclench and like release and drift away from your brain. So maybe over time you do become less mad, but the depression, of course, gets worse and worse. And so functionally you're in the same place.
Right.
But the way Loghain's arc went with the whole Hope of Saladar situation, maybe brain plasticity is really coming in clutch for him. It's a thing. I mean, people have done amazing things around brain injuries, learned to walk when they shouldn't be able to. I even read about someone who like basically didn't have Alzheimer's, even though she had Alzheimer's. Like her brain looked like Alzheimer's, but she didn't function like she had Alzheimer's. Like brains are wild. We don't know the ways they're capable of rewiring themselves. All we know is that they're incredibly plastic. So who knows what a strong personality in the Wheel of Time universe could do with that.
I have to wonder if, going back to maybe he's already a little insane. You remember when he was tortured and tried to be turned and he resisted better than anybody else. I have to wonder if maybe some of his resistance in that headcanon would have had to do with the fact that he was already kind of insane or already touched by the Dark One somehow. So he's able to sort of just dump that pain. I don't know. I'm stretching here. But
I think you're onto something, that he's already been through the worst thing he could ever be put through. He's been through something worse than most tortures that humans are able to create, right? He's already been through the worst he thinks he could ever go through. This, in many ways, when he gets tortured, like that would be almost familiar, and he would have certain places to go, right?
Right.
That those neural pathways already exist,
right?
And maybe and we know a persecution complex is a hell of a drug. So if he's insane on behalf of thinking he needs greatness, and they're keeping him from his greatness, the insanity now has a bit of a protective. All right, the more we get tortured, the more we're going to get greatness someday. Like.
His insanity made him more powerful, stronger mentally somehow.
I mean, it helps Rand out.
I can't break, Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Like we can't say like it's like with mutation, right? Most of the time mutations are bad, but every once in a while evolution takes a mutation and says, "Oh, this is helpful," especially with this changing environment. But with Rand, it's like most of the mutations are bad for people's brains, but every once in a while it lets you talk to your dead past self and get your past memories. Or in the case of Loghain, it gives you a drive and a need to be powerful, which lets you ignore extreme situations that would have, put anyone else down, basically.
Right. There's a little bit of the last that can be done, and now the cup is overflowing. What more do you want?
Right.
Usually that's bad, but twice in an age, you're going to get a handsome man who manages to make it work for him, apparently.
Or he's just on the far end of the bell curve, right? Like, that's the other explanation for why he lasts however many dozen years without going insane.
Absolutely. Just pure statistics.
Yeah, pure statistics, which, is always a rare probability, but certainly possible that someone doesn't go insane for a very long time.
Yeah. It's less fun that way, though.
I know. Loghain mutters something about basically killing Mishrael because he says he may not enjoy his dragon long. He's too free with his tongue. And I was like, is he going to get demoted? No, he's going to have to kill him. That would be the only way to
I don't think Loghain's planning on killing him. I think he's saying, well, that kid's not going to make it in the circles he's running in.
Fair enough.
That kid's mixed up with the wrong crowd for how loose his tongue is. Because I don't think Loghain is making a hit list. I don't think that's his vibe. But he knows that that's Taim's vibe. And he's like, yeah, Mishrael, you're going to want to change your behavior, or you're gonna find yourself shorter by a head. But yeah, he thinks briefly about how he's concerned for his Aes Sedai companions, and then he saddles up for war, basically. He says, we're got to go back, and the vibe coming off of him through the bond is literally just war drums. Just his whole, he's gone like Birgitta, right? Focus. He's changed because of being given this permission, this news. He is now headed off on a mission that means war. And then Tovann is like, we have got to go with him. It's super important because we have to foil whatever vile plot he's doing. And Gabrelle is like, eh.
And this is where the name salad becomes painfully dense. This is a very difficult section to analyze, and this is probably why the notes took so long, because checking every Aes Sedai's backstory to figure out why they feel the way they feel takes a while.
Yeah, it's a lot. I do have a few bits that I think would be interesting in a read-in. If there's a nice top paragraph, and then there's a bunch of description, and then there's a cool quote.
Okay, go ahead and...
So yeah, I'll get us into this name salad.
Good luck.
Thanks. Slowly descending one of the wide hallways that spiraled gently through the White Tower, Yukiri felt prickly as a starved cat. She could barely make herself listen to what the sister gliding beside her was saying. The morning was still dim, first light darkened by the snow falling heavily on Tar Valon, and the middle levels of the tower were as icy as a borderland winter. Well, perhaps not so cold as that, she allowed after a moment. She had not been that far north in a number of years, and memory expanded what it did not shrink. That was the reason written records were so important. Except when you did not dare write down anything, at least. Still, it was chill enough. For all the ancient builders' cleverness and skill, heat from the great furnaces in the basement never reached this high. Drafts made the flames dance on the gilded stand lamps, and some were strong enough to stir the heavy tapestries spaced along the white walls, spring flowers and woodlands and exotic animals and birds, alternating with scenes of tower triumphs that would never be displayed in the public areas below. Her own rooms, with their warm fireplaces, would once have been much more comfortable. And then there's a long-ass paragraph of recap, and then there's an excellent paragraph, or little quote-tastic paragraph here. The only thing truly certain was that none of that mattered a spit in a rainstorm. Knowing so did not help her mood in the slightest. Worry over being caught in a tangle of roses, even if the thorns might kill you eventually, was a luxury when you had a knife point pressed to your ribs. I feel like that paragraph is just... it applies to so many things. You know?
Dealing with the problems in front of you instead of worrying about something that might happen in the future. Yeah.
Even if it's happening to you right now, the thing that's happening sooner is more important. It just the crushing all around enemies vibe of this whole POV. It's really summed up with the desperation of that paragraph. Because
this is one of the group that is hunting the Black Ajah on the quote-unquote orders from Elida.
Yes, this is the group that was looking for the Ajah heads and stumbled into the Hunt for the Black Ajah quest.
Okay. So she was in the second group, yeah.
Yes, Yukiri's in the group that busts into the basement and says, "What the hell are you doing in here with the Oath Rod?" and joins the parties. That's Yukiri's in that group. And that's the POV of who we're in. She then talks to Seanchan, whose POV we were in when that scene in the basement happened. Again, the meme gif of absolute insanity, conspiracy nonsense in the chat is our brains right now.
And so basically they're spying on different women, trying to figure out when they've left the tower, when they've come back, if they've lied.
Right. So what's happening right now is Maidani is giving a report to Yukiri on the latest round of intelligence. They are looking into... Atuan. No. Yeah, they're looking into Atuan. So Maidani is giving an intelligence report about Atuan to Yukiri. That's how that's working. Atuan is a dark friend. Yukiri is in charge of the group that is now hunting the dark friends. Two groups became one. Yukiri and Seanchan are kind of the two that are wrestling over control. That Yukiri is mostly second in command.
And Saren and Pavara were the original two.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes, Seirin and Pivara are the first two Black Aja hunters. They have been subsumed. They are under Yukiri's direction at this point, as well as Ciane. Yukiri and Ciane are in charge of all the everything. I'm working so hard, guys. My brain.
I can see the steam coming out of your ears already. And we're just starting this segment.
We're starting on a good foot, though.
Yes.
So yeah, they're doing intel on a Darkfriend. This is a person they already know is a Darkfriend, but they're trying to infer who that Darkfriend's +1 is.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've used the Darkfriends they know to find this one Darkfriend. So they know that this Darkfriend that they've found by proxy has another Darkfriend they can find. So when they see her in association with this other woman, they're like, aha, there's another suspect for us to look into.
Because the way the circles work is almost like a chain, right? Each circle has 3 members in it, but you're always in 2 circles.
Yep.
And so you always know about 4 other Darkfriends. Is the way I've been able to figure it out.
That does seem to be the implication. He says you only know 3, but math suggests otherwise.
Because there's 2 in one circle and 2 in another circle. And they found the 2 that were in the one circle, and that's how they identified her. And then they're looking for the other 2 that she knows about.
Well, they found 1.
Okay.
And she gave them 2 names. One of those names was not in the tower, and then the other is walking in front of them right now. Because we get in this POV that Talene has given up more than 2 names. She knows more than 2 Aes Sedai.
Sure.
That are Darkfriends. But the minimum number of Darkfriends that an Aes Sedai knows, the minimum number of Aes Sedai Darkfriends that another Aes Sedai Darkfriend would know would be 2. No, would be 3. Would it be 2? All
right. Well, Zul is correcting me, and she says, 3, the 2 in your heart, and then 1 other. So you have another connection to another heart, but you don't know everybody in that other heart.
Right.
So that's the 2 in your heart, and then the 3rd is the connection. Got it.
Yeah. And you might know more for reasons, but that's how the organization is supposed to be.
You might come in contact with another Darkfriend and figure out who that person is, and so know that this person is a Darkfriend.
Yeah.
Oh.
Visual aid.
Nice. Lil Jen gave us a visual aid of actually a bunch of triangles with their tips connected.
Yeah, it's 4 triangles connected only at apices. Is that the right word?
Apex.
Apex. Was it when it's plural? Is it a sheep situation?
I think it's like fish, yeah.
Okay.
Look at all those apex. No, I don't know. No, it wouldn't be appendices. That's well, yeah, I can see apex. Oh man,
apices.
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 That can't be right.
Words are
There's
bad.
no way. There's no way.
Apexes.
So what's the plural of vertex? Vertecep. No. There's no way. Vertices. That is correct.
That looks correct.
That looks correct.
Yeah, so 4 triangles joined at the... So it's 1 triangle in the middle and then 1 triangle joined at each of the vertices of said triangle. Oh, and now there's smiley faces being attached to them for further illustration to explain how the hearts work. This is excellent. I don't even have to make these. They're just happening. Zul, I just say apexes. Apexes. I like apexes.
Okay, so wouldn't the person in the middle also know the person in the... I guess they would only know one person in the other heart. Okay. So then there shouldn't be a connection between them and the other vertices on that top right.
Well, there's just triangles everywhere. Yeah, because you know 4 people. Yeah, I'm seeing it. Because of the triangles, I'm seeing it. You end up knowing 4 people.
I think it's misleading because I think there needs to be a straight line between the vertices of the triangles. I think the triangles, there's triangles that are disconnected, and then there needs to be a straight line between each of the tips. And that will give you disconnected hearts, where you're only connected to one person in that other triangle.
But it is supposed to be a repeating pattern. Because they have to be able to chainmail each other.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, this visual aid proves that you're right. Everyone knows 4 people. Math says.
It proves me wrong.
No, it proves you're right. Because there should be smiley faces at every corner because there's just triangles going off in all the directions. Every triangle has another triangle coming off of all of its vertices. Oh, now we've got Guy Fawkes and a bunch of other emoji faces. We've moved on from the standard yellow smiley emoji face. Now we've got all kinds of things happening. It still proves that you're right, though.
No, but see, here I've got the agreement that there are lines between the triangles, which is drops it back down to 3. I can't whip up a visual aid right now. Dana's killing me.
Well, I'm with Liligen. The visual aid is how I've always pictured it, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, I'm literally opening up a freaking text file. I'll put it live on stream and see if I can. Here we go. Okay, you guys should be able to see this, right? Oh my god, triangle. Give me a triangle shape here. No, why can't I just see a triangle? All right, just lines.
I'm starting the event now.
Oh, yeah, now's a great time for people to stop in.
I wanted to see the screen, so I had to get into the thing.
All right, pencil. So, triangle, heart, heart, heart. And so there's one person in each of these vertices. You know 2 other people. And then you have a connection. I want to change the color or something on that.
Definitely change the color.
Okay, so then you have vertices here, here, and there. And that's how the hearts are connected. So it's more of a web of triangles rather than... And then this person here would know 1, 2, 3 other people.
I feel like you're just making bigger triangles.
I'm not, though. It's triangles connected by single lines.
Triangles.
It's a totally different thing. It's a different shape altogether.
Triangles.
No, they're hearts.
If I just yell triangle a whole bunch, does that make me right? I'm being told to trust the maths people. Fine, I guess. I'll trust the maths people. Triangles connected with segments. Exactly, Jedi Pants. Numbers don't lie until they do. That is exactly my experience with math.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Lies and just math in general. Anything more complicated than, finger counting is just lies.
All right, so where the hell were we in this book?
Fuck if I know, dude.
Before triangles. The next big chunk is recap city. Sort of remembering these are who the people are. She compelled the rebels. There's 10 rebels, 2 from each Aja, not including the blue and the red, because of course the blue's not there anymore, and the red, there aren't any rebels. And they put them basically under compulsion by making them swear the 4th oath. And so she's like, I'm not too worried about what my punishment's going to be for that, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be killed.
Right. If I live to face punishment, I will consider that mission success.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. Okay, the wiki is literally backing you up on all of this nonsense. Ugh, I hate this. I hate everything about this. Moving on. Then we get a bunch of, the tower is a bunch of toxic nonsense, and here's some names. Do we have anything interesting about Mary's Thornhill, Dorez, Messenaus, and Ellen Worrell? Is there anything interesting? Isn't Ellen Worrell the person that gets used as an age comparison to make Nynaeve cry at some point?
I must have missed looking those up. I totally overread those names.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure Ellen Worrell is a name that gets used, but it's not important.
Okay, let me open these 3 tabs up. Ellen is the novice on duty when Gitara has her foretelling in the anteroom.
Yes, so she is the example that Elaine uses to explain to Nynaeve the effects of slowing. Because she says, you remember how her sister came to visit? That was her younger sister. Because Ellen was a novice 20 years ago when Gitara had her foretelling, and she is only just newly enough raised that she should still be curtsying on instinct. Fun little Easter egg that never goes anywhere, but just reminds you of how incredibly long the study program to become Aes Sedai can be, coupled with the aging thing. No wonder the Aes Sedai have a weird way of using words like daughter and child.
Dorez was one of those that Elida rewarded at Alviarin's urging for no reason, that started to create the strife between the Ajas.
Oh, okay.
That's the only interesting thing about her whatsoever. And this is the only time Maris is mentioned.
All right, then.
She's Brown Aja. And she's found out when Pavara break Atuan.
She's found out for what?
That she's Black Aja.
Who? Who's that? Who's Black Aja?
Oh, Maris Thornhill is black.
Maris Thornhill is a Black Aja.
Maris Thornhill's black.
Okay, so we're passing them now in the hallway going, ugh, greens flaunting their shawls. What's going on with them? With these other two Aes Sedai that are relatively meaningless, except one was there kind of sort of for Gitara.
I'm glad we looked that up. Black Aja alert. We missed that I missed. We need a sound effect to put in every time we do Black Aja alert.
Definitely. We need a Black Aja siren. I don't have a pen.
Maris Thornhill. What are you trying to mark?
I want to mark that she's a Black Aja because I just was like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't look them up because I was stressed because my day was intense and I just blew past that. Just like Yukiri blows past it, right? Yukiri is all focused on Atuan and the woman that Atuan's talking to and dun 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 dun. Meanwhile, she's walking right by a Black Aja who is mixed in with a woman who gets rewarded by Elida, and that's her only contribution to the story, and a woman who has taken a really long time to get to the shawl, and that's her only contribution to the story. Like, the cleverness. In the name salad, we find a nugget of blue cheese, a cranberry, a cherry tomato, whatever your favorite thing to find in a salad is. Here's one.
I mean, it's Black Aja, so I'm going to go with poop nugget in your salad. Ugh, just ruins the whole thing. Or a bug. One of those you find you crunch down on a little insectoid living in the lettuce.
See, just making it worse. Why are you not washing your salad?
You're supposed to wash your salad? I'm kidding.
Christ almighty, don't make my heart jump like that. So yeah, we're getting a sense of the tower as a bunch of armed camps, and Yukiri herself is wearing her very best shawl. So she supposed she was flaunting her Aja a bit, and lately she's been considering that it's time for her to get a warder, and she's horrified by that once she realizes that it's not because she wants a warder, it's because she feels unsafe. She's like, well, that's a terrible reason to get a warder, which, I mean, I agree. Like, it's good to unpack why you want to have a manslave.
Not for the first time, the thought hit her hard that someone had to mediate among the Ajas, and soon or the rebels would dance in through the front door, bold as thieves, and empty the house with the rest of them squabbling over who got Great Aunt Sumi's pewter.
I love that.
It's just a fun little... I'm like, oh yeah, and that's exactly what Gawyn does. She basically dances right in. I think it's a little foreshadowing.
That's the humor of it, is that she comes in as a rebel and then mediates so that way the bullshit from the rebel camp doesn't come in and infect the White Tower. She ends the rebellion in a way that Yukiri can't even imagine would be possible. It's so funny. It's really hilarious because later she thinks that if the rebels were to show up, then that might unify the tower. You know, an existential threat would get everyone to unite and remember that we're all one group. Right? Which absolutely does not happen, of course, in the book or ever, apparently. But then it's Gawyn, so she fixes it anyway by just Gawyn-ing at them very, very hard.
Mm-hmm. There's also another saying a little bit earlier. I'm sorry, I'm going back to this a little bit. A jackdaw in swan's feathers.
Blind woman, deaf man, jackdaw fool. Let the Lord of Chaos rule.
Right. That's why I wanted to bring that up. And I realized I didn't know what a jackdaw was.
I'm assuming it's like a really annoying bird that steals things and or nests. A crow. A cowbird?
They're basically they're a smaller type of crow. They're sort of in the same family.
It's like a blue jay, but black?
Mm-hmm.
So they're a real bird.
Yeah, they're a real bird. Yes, they are a real bird. And it does appear that they have
in the family Corvidae.
And I'm trying to figure out they have a couple of reputations, which is where I'm running into trouble because they seem to like shiny objects. They seem to also have been shot as vermin. They're also blamed for killing small birds. I'm just looking up jackdaws and trying to figure out like what sort of reputation they had.
Okay, so is it a crow or is it something else? Some pictures in chat.
Jackdaws are two species in the bird genus Coleos, pronunciation, closely related to, but generally smaller than, the crows and ravens corvus.
Okay. So where are they?
Asia and Northern Africa.
Okay, so we do not have them here. No jackdaws for us. No jackdaws for Robert Jordan when he was hanging out in the Two Rivers.
Oh, there's a western jackdaw in the British Isles in Western Europe.
Oh, okay.
And they're probably closer to a crow.
Okay, so their family is Corvidae, their subfamily is Corvinae, and their genus is Coleus. Whereas crows, the genus is Corvus. So they are literally cousins. They're all the way down to the subfamily, same as crows.
So she's calling a crow in swan's feathers. And I'm not sure exactly what the, not swan's feathers, swans. Feathers.
Yes, swan as in a bird, not as in the fish-loving former Amerlin.
And that's about the other gray, which is
Maidani. Who is the former lover of Elida, who's a mole, who is present for really witnessing a Gawyn going head-to-head against Elida a couple of times. Maidani is in the background of a lot and is mostly noted for having boobs. That's really her main attribute. I kind of mentally cast her as like Dolly Parton in the plot. She's just like there to have boobs, and that's just why you cast her. Like, no shame to Dolly Parton. Obviously, she's amazing. But like, I just kind of always mentally like slot in like a Dolly Parton like person for Maidani.
That's fantastic. Even though she's gray.
Yeah, I mean, Dolly Parton gets along with everybody. She's a gray.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I was wondering, if maybe it has more to do with just getting along with everybody, as opposed to a swan who's kind of isolated.
Oh, I figured it was just a way for the countrywoman to insult the tall, pretty woman who she's annoyed with, just sort of in a casual way. I just figured it was like, annoying person. I didn't think it had any particular meaning other than that Yukiri is pissed. Dressed like a cheap tart. Yes.
Okay, so that was actually back a little bit. So let me jump forward. Oh, a little bit about Logain, his claims about the red setting him up as a false dragon and how Pavara doesn't know. And then I have to go into, did it again? I'm so torn on whether or not it actually happened, because I think some black Aja who were reds probably set up some false dragons, but I don't think Logain was necessarily set up. And Suan clearly came up with it, and I don't think it was the red Aja in general. So clearly Pavara wouldn't know about it because she's too innocent to be included. But I can't rule. I just don't know whether it's happened or not, and it's driving me absolutely insane.
Because it happens sometimes, but not every time. I think you're completely right. Everything you said is correct. And it's just that it didn't always happen to every false dragon. There were plenty of organic false dragons, as well as Darkfriend Red Sisters doing their thing. Just the only explanation is that it's a mix of column A and column B. It's the only way it makes sense.
But yeah, like Dana, I am also a believer that I think the Black may have actually set Logain up. Like, it's just Suan came upon that by accident, and Logain was surprised when she brought it up. He's like, how did she know? But for her, it was a lie she made up. For him, it was the truth. But going back, I'd have to reread that section, because I think he does buy into it as a lie.
I always assumed that he bought into it as a lie, but I mean, that's a very much a your mileage may vary kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Then I have nothing highlighted for like a page.
Yeah, I have just general shock and amazement that the White Tower literally has servants hauling wood and water up ramps and stairs, all these floors. I'm just horrified at their lack of engineering innovation over 3,000 years. Just horrified, but whatever. It's fine.
Or putting anybody on duty to help with any of those chores. Like, one novice or one accepted could be channeling all that wood up the side, like doing all the actual heavy lifting, right? As a practice, right?
Yeah. But no, a tower that did that would also send Greens to the border. So.
Right. Well, that's true. I love how greens to the borders become shorthand for, and the yellow would establish hospitals, and the gray would have negotiators,
and the brown would establish universities.
And universities, and all we can just there's a whole list of things that the Ajahs should be doing.
Yep. They just instead have very feudal approach to manual labor and servants because they're Aes Sedai and they deserve to have servants, I guess. But they're trying to walk in the hallways to not get eavesdropped on. And unfortunately, every single sister in the tower has the same thought. So 6 a.m. on a Tuesday is, in fact, when everybody is on the road trying to beat the early morning traffic.
Right. I think everyone's doing the same thing, right? They're trying to basically do the little game of houses. And the only way to do that is to walk and talk. This is basically Aaron Sorkin's West Wing in triplicate. Everyone's just walking and talking and making plans, but also trying to avoid anybody else. And so everyone's like giving each other like furtive looks and trying not to be caught. And everyone's thinking about, oh, what if I get noticed? But at the same time, noticing everybody else and trying to figure out what they're up to. And that's where some of this name salad comes from.
Yep. And I love the line that in spite of the 3 oaths, tales that get carried somehow grow in the telling. Like,
as long as you believe it to be true. Yeah. Well, and also how the Aes Sedai can tell the word that is not true can still spread misinformation because you can get half stories, you can get partial stories, and so you can believe things that are not true even when somebody else is telling the tale as they believe it to be true.
Yep, and then you put your own interpretation on it, and pretty soon Tom Marilyn is the hero of the story, and Randall Thor isn't. All
without telling a word that you didn't think was not true.
Yeah,
the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's incredible, but it's a thing.
and we see that with all sorts of plans and rumors and things they do because they're convinced. I mean, it only takes one hop for someone to be convinced of something that is absolutely not true. Just look at Gawyn.
We will if we ever get there.
There's a lot in this chapter.
Yeah. So we actually get the description of how hearts work after all of that nonsense about us going back and forth on it. We actually get the paragraph that does describe it very specifically. Atuan Laraset was one of only 3 black sisters Talene knew. That was how they organized themselves. 3 women who knew each other. 3 women who formed one heart, with each woman knowing one more the other 2 did not. Atuan had been Talene's one more, so there was some hope she could be followed to 2 others.
Right. So they crossed that bridge, and then supposedly they crossed the bridge from Talene to Atuan, and then hopefully they can capture Atuan, and Atuan will know 2 more.
Exactly. We're gonna build on their success. So yeah, they do their walk and talk past their suspect of their intelligence gathering and have a little reflection on fear and what it means to have dark friends, like under control, blah, blah, blah. And then Pavara, okay, here's a fun little section. Pavara had tried to maintain that Talene must be wrong about Galena Casban and went into a rage that lasted a full day when she was finally convinced that her red sister was really black. She still spoke of strangling Galena with her own hands. Just, again, not that we had any doubt about Pavara, but just really driving home, like, there are some genuinely not dark friend Aes Sedai that will, like, flip out when they find out what's been going on. Which is why she was never involved in the vileness, clearly.
Right. They also name Tamila Kinderode,
who's been an antagonist since like book 2 because of us being with the Supergirls. But Yukiri was not along for that ride. So
got it. Yeah, I was gonna say that name sounds really familiar, but it's not one that necessarily I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, she's part of the 13 Aes Sedai that take off, and then Swan sends the girls after them. I believe Tamila is on that list.
Okay, yeah, she is.
And I believe is still alive up into the last battle. I think she gets taken out in the last battle. She survives Nynaeve and Elaine multiple times.
That's when Elaine disguises herself as Forsaken and confronts Chesmel in the dungeons. That in that battle, Tamila is killed.
Yeah. Okay, so not quite to the last battle, but she survives a lot of Elaine encounters until she doesn't.
Yeah.
And so they get to the end of their conversation. And then Yukiri tells Maidani to seduce Elida. for the movement, and Maidani says, ew, also I tried, and that didn't work because Alviarin was cock blocking. And then Yukiri says, well, no probs because Alviarin left, and spoilers, she's going to come back and get disgraced, so don't worry about it.
And that gives us a bit of timeline as well, right? Because Alviarin left a day or two, and they're also talking about the fact that the rebel army is still far away.
It's heavily snowing, so this is like day of the army arriving, or like day before?
That would be my assumption, yeah. Which means this scene is taking place at the same time as what, the end of Winter's Heart? Or, no, not the end of Winter's Heart, the end of the book before Winter's Heart.
Path of Daggers.
Path of Daggers.
I just look at the back of the book.
We're literally going back a whole book in timeline.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the end of Path of Daggers is when the army moves, right?
Yeah. They step through.
Yep.
And then we think about that because that's the theme of the slog. Is things happen and then we respond to them.
Right.
So yeah, we're jumping back a bit, just a little bit, relative to the POVs that we were just in earlier in the prologue. So the prologue isn't even all happening on the same day. The events in the prologue are not happening at the same time. This is an asynchronous prologue. Chaos.
Yes. Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah, no, and this is the book before, right? Because last book, Winter's Heart, that was the cleansing and everything. That didn't end. It was Path of Daggers that literally ended with them going through that gateway. So we didn't get any real resolution on that for a whole book.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
And also, note, it's snowing, and so then there's the question of where did Alviarin go? And how?
Right.
Traveling, obviously, and she comes back, remember, I think from Tremalking. Is where she comes back from.
Tremalking and Shadar Logoth.
Right, because the cleansing happens, then the Amayar kill themselves. So she goes from Shadar Logoth to Tremalking for whatever fucking reason, sees the Amayar dying, shows up in the library, looks at the Seafolk sisters, and is like, should I tell them? Would they be sad? I'm going to not tell them. I'm going to go get my power back. And then she gets the whole Shadar Haran forehead mark situation, demotion from being keeper. It's a whole deal. So she just took off for the trip that's how she comes back from. And yeah, that happens shortly after the cleansing and after the army arrives, because the army is arriving shortly. The army arrives significantly before the cleansing happens.
Yeah, so this is why we're not doing any of those cleansing reads during this chunk, because this is way before the cleansing happens. Absolutely. Which is still technically why we're doing it. We're doing it in chronological order. I mean, well, not chronological. We're trying as best we can. Oh God. So yeah, there's some really weird timeline jumping going on in this book. There's a whole conversation about Elida being a dark friend because they know everything that comes out of there, but we know that's because Alviarin's the dark friend.
Like, and maybe Alviarin could be a dark friend. We should look. We're looking into her. Like she's just on the list to get looked into. Like just like basically all the other ones who left at the same time, which would be the other 13 dark friends that that Elaine and Nynaeve have been hunting this entire time. Those also, they're planning on looking into that to see if they're dark friends or not. It's like, geez, you're just retracing all these just ancient steps that our heroes have figured out literally, 6 books ago. So slow. Yeah. So slow.
Typical Aes Sedai bureaucracy.
Absolutely. And then Name Salad arrives in full force.
I don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. All
right, well, get out your 11-foot pole then, because we're going in.
Oh no! God. Taking the air, Seanchan, she said sharply. Saren won't be pleased when I tell her. Not at all pleased. I'm not pleased, Seanchan. My face is melting off. Why?
The S names. The S.
Okay, Jordan.
And then the next paragraph, we have to throw in even more names, but like at least they're not S names, so we won't throw them under the bus quite so hard. But got this.
Ooh, Bernila's described as another one of Maidani's jackdaws.
Ooh. Jackdaw fool. The Lord of Chaos is truly ruling. Yeah. So basically, Seanchan runs up to be like, I had a thought. and I don't have a sense of self-preservation. In Yukiri's mind, I'm kind of with Seanchan on this, but whatever. There's a lovely line here that reminds us of why all of us who identify as brown and white Aja, we are the same, because this gray is thinking about her, strong-willed and confident, and frequently as blind to the world around her as any brown. Whites were often like that, all logic and no judgment. Just representation. It's happening. Mm-hmm. Let's just bask in that. In the middle of name salad, it's like, yes, your hosts are in fact like this. This is us.
So does that mean white Aja is basically the autistic Aja, and brown Aja is the ADHD, hyperfocus?
Yeah.
Gets distracted by all the little things.
I would say yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That sounds about right.
So we need to assign each Aja to a mental disorder.
Yeah, I have seen this conversation play out a couple of different times. There's a lot of ways to run it, because really we all contain multitudes. But yes, it's a fun exercise to assign your personal divergences to the different attributes of your in-world fandom. It's a fun exercise.
I honestly I have almost nothing for this chunk with Seanchan.
Yeah, it's catching us up on the really convoluted subplots. If you don't understand them by now, we haven't done our job, and there's no hope for you. So we're just going to skip it. So basically what happens is Seanchan has stumbled across the same phenomenon that Swan did. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That is fundamentally what's happening here.
Wondering why the heads of the Ajas were meeting in secret had lost its urgency compared to finding dark friends among them. So this is what the group was doing before they stumbled onto the group that was tracking dark friends.
Yes.
And so they've been diverted. So this is sort of like, oh, by the way, remember when we were working on this thing? We should probably think about it. And basically they figure it out. And it's like, oh, all the heads of Ajas got together and stepped in, and they all figure out based on their Ajas, and they talk about their heads of Ajas, that basically they wanted to control who was in the hall after the split. And that's what it was all about.
And specifically, they wanted to assign 2 young sitters to the hall, because the heads of the Ajas know each other, and they know that the split is going to be temporary, and they need to plan ahead for how they're going to deal with putting the hall back together. And so the Aja heads in the rebel and the loyalist camp independently come up with the same solution, because obviously. And so basically we are we're retracing paths that our heroes have already gone down with the establishment Aes Sedai. And it's very convoluted, but that's fundamentally what's happening, is everything that Swan explained already.
Seanchan, if you're actually implying the Aja heads conspired over who would go into the hall, and I never heard a more cracked brain notion, if that's what you're suggesting, why would they choose 5 odd women and 1 who isn't?
Don't they do that in Swan's iteration of it too? There's like 5 or 6 odd out, and then 2 that are fine, like normal.
Yeah, well, because they want it when it's because how many people left versus how many people stayed. When they want the tower to recombine, and they want the old ones to fit together flawlessly.
I completely agree. Agree. There's got to be a little bit of continuity, because there was a hall before and there will be a hall after. We need some people to be continuous through this process, but most of them need to be able to come on and then be shaken off. And yeah, it's the whole they wouldn't conspire. Is like, you're an Aes Sedai. You're conspiring. Why? Why does everyone assume that they're the only competent person in the world? I guess she does think of her own hypocrisy here, that a conspiracy of sitters is beyond far-fetched, and I'm in the middle of one. So I guess she acknowledges her incongruity.
And here again, we get confirmation that this is before the rebels have teleported in, because we get this whole discussion about how the rebels can't leave Mirandy before spring, and they'll have to march upriver. Well, that'll take months. So clearly they can't be camped outside the doors unless it is happening right now. Mm-hmm. Because these sitters would know about it.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of this POV for me.
Yeah. Same. And then we can get to Aram. Sorry, not Aram. We can get to Gawyn, who I'm likening to Aram in my notes. My brain is wearing out. And we can just basically, he's a dumbass and the episode's done. Moving on.
Gawyn's eyes popped open in the darkness as a new wave of cold rose into the hayloft. The barn's thick stone walls normally kept out the worst of the night's chill, if only the worst. Voices murmured below. No one sounded excited. He took his hand away from the sword lying beside him and tugged his gauntlets tighter. Like all the rest of the younglings, he slept in every stitch he could put on. Probably it was just time to wake some of the men around him for their sentry turns, but he was fully awake now himself, and he doubted he would find sleep again soon. In any case, his sleep was always fretful, troubled by dark dreams, haunted by the woman he loved. He did not know where Gawyn was, or whether she was alive, or whether she could forgive him. He stood up, letting the loose hay he had pulled over himself slide off his cloak, and buckled on his sword belt.
Yay, you're a lovesick one-dimensional puppy. Congratulations. Oh, also, you can do murder. Let's not forget that. Murderous puppy. So yeah, he's just very attuned to his environment and knows that someone's approaching. And
well, they're cold. They just don't have the proper resources. They're in all their clothes because they're in this tiny little cheese village without enough shelter for everybody. And without any heating whatsoever in the middle of winter, and without probably proper clothes.
Because the seasons changed so fast, they were dressed for summer.
Because the season changed,
Yeah, totally. They haven't had a chance to resupply properly. They've just been disowned by their parent organization. Yeah, and also, I just want everyone to know, there is a cheese town on the coast called Tillamook, and everyone should go there if you get to go there. But also, the derriere smells like derriere. So that's what they're going through as well.
Yeah, the cows that produce the cheese produce another substance as well that tends to be the overwhelming smell in those areas.
Yeah, it's an experience driving through that section of the coast.
So Rajar is Lord Gawyn's second, I guess, his first lieutenant.
Yeah.
He ends up being a warder. Once the tower recombines, the younglings, I believe, get redemption and are brought in and just become a group of warders for the most part.
Because that's all they were ever supposed to be. That's the whole point. They're off on a stupid side quest because of Gawyn. Like, when the tower resolves, they get to go back to what they were doing, which is being ready to do warrior stuff, which is, I mean, they've gotten really sped up on their training, which is good, given that the last battle is like next week. And
so what follows is a series of problematic and annoying thoughts in Gawyn's head. I'm not sure what order you want to address them in. But just one, the constantly causing is saying, Elaine is still just an accepted. She can't take responsibility for anything, when she's like, we're so over her being called and accepted by other Aes Sedai at this point, that like Gawyn reverting to that feels just so annoying and so 4 books ago, right? Like
so 4 books ago.
So 4 books ago. Oh my God. I can't believe you're still wearing that attitude. We've all had character growth and you just seem to be stuck in this place that we have all decided is not really where we want to go. So, make sure you only wear pink on Fridays.
Yeah, stop making accepted trying to happen. Stop making accepted. It's not going to happen. Accepted is not going to happen.
But no, I mean, yes, he doesn't know at this point, but it's so fucking annoying to go back to that attitude, right? It's not his fault he doesn't know she's been promoted to Aes Sedai. But at the same time, he should have kept informed.
And he's so infantilizing in all of this.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like,
just
they're too dumb to know what's going on. They're these little girls, and they need to be taken care of. And I'm such a big, strong brother. I'm going to take care of them. And I know what's going on. And the line at the end, he was sure she could not be held accountable. She was still only one of the accepted. He had to tell himself that frequently. I'm just like, maybe don't. Maybe the fact that you're having a really hard time remembering that she's just one of the accepted is because she's not. He's so infantilizing. He's such a dumbass. To both of the women he claims to love, to both of them. He's just like, you're too stupid to know how to put your pants on because you're a girl, so you wear skirts.
I'm just having a snack over here. This is great.
just going off. It's just so, like, if he would just give them the agency to be the level of a mature adult that he is, because it's literally been, like, what, a year? So they're, like, about as old as he was when the book started. Like, just treat them like adults. Treat them like people with brains, and then maybe make decisions based on how you feel about reality rather than your desire to just protect them. Protect them from what? Protect them from themselves? You piece of shit, you're going to get both of them killed.
So the next thing I have a big problem with is the newest problem was that an army lay between him and Tarvala now, at least 25,000 soldiers. So, like, somehow between the last POV and this POV, 25,000 soldiers teleported into the White Tower area, and nobody's gonna fucking mention that? I mean, I know he's mentioning it here, but just like...
This POV is just gonna hop over, like, a 2-month period with no mention.
No mention.
Just casually, oh, by the way, none of these POVs are at the same time. Some of them are,
right,
but some of them aren't.
Nope.
And they're not even remotely close
together in time frame. And a bunch of stuff happens between there and other parts of the world.
Like a whole book and a half of stuff happens. No wonder Gawyn's such a dumbass. He can't even like be in the right POV time frame.
Yeah, this whole thing is absolutely just...
He was mired in a hopeless snarl. That's RJ like asking us to have sympathy for this plot he wrote himself into. And I have no sympathy, RJ.
No,
none.
No sympathy whatsoever.
You wrote this bed. You will lie in it.
That's it is what I feel like Jordan's doing, is being like, listen, I made a mistake. I'm Gawyn here. This book is a snarl. I'm stuck. I think somebody wants me dead. I'm doing my best.
No, you aren't.
So basically, there's also a couple of Aes Sedai in the village with them.
A lot, actually. I think 11 or 13. I don't know. There's a lot. He only mentions a few, but then he implies that there's others he's not mentioning.
There were 12 in the group, and then Tarnia shows up.
Yeah.
And then Katrine shows up. So that's a total of 14.
Yeah. Because he collected some in the aftermath of Dumai's Wells, and they're I guess arriving, because it takes so long to get back from Dumai's Wells. They're arriving after Egwene arrives. No, they were there already. Oh, because the younglings got kicked out. So why does he have a bunch of Aes Sedai with him? They wouldn't be kicked out.
Yeah, let me look at the backstory of these.
Oh no, I remember. Elida meets with whoever it is that comes back, and she says, you will take all your sisters and you will go be in some town where you can't have any fun, but you're nearby. Dorlane will do, I think. And she sends them all off there to just sit in exile. And then Katarine shows up out of nowhere just like a few days ago, or tonight or something like that.
And that's to cover up Dumai's Wells, because these were all the Aes Sedai who came back from Dumai's Wells.
Correct. Right. They are a state secret being held in a safe that smells of cow shit.
And we do see that in the previous POV. Someone mentions they didn't know what happened to Corvala and her group. They haven't heard from them. Right,
because they all scattered to the four corners of the wind and are trying to make their way back as they can.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the ones that did make their way back are being hidden in Dorlane.
Yeah, and the younglings are there because Gawyn refuses to take the hint that he's murderously not wanted here. And he's also now like, well, fuck, I'm stuck by winter, and it would literally be faster to wait until winter and then travel than to start traveling now and wait for spring, which is, okay, fair.
Well, and he's a liability because he knows about Dumai's Wells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's also a liability because he's a man with a sword who lets Sanche go. Well, she doesn't know that, but he knows that. So yeah, actually, so Katarine and Tarna are already here, and then the new arrival is, where's her name? Narenwin. I really like that name. So yeah, Narenwin has shown up. Why? I read this so recently. Why did she show up?
There was so many, basically from orders from Elida, that Elida is basically trying to communicate to Gawyn and the younglings, because she stationed them there, and so she's sending them orders.
But she's doing something else. Oh, yeah. She has orders to gather them up and do what she can. It's a very... Elida's just kind of, I guess, trying to do damage control with this woman.
So I'm trusting Encyclopedia Watt here, but according... And chapter 16, the orders are to use the younglings to harry Gareth Bryn's army. So basically, she's ordering Gawyn to go attack the army that's out there. She's saying, you're out there, go piss these people off. Which is, of course, a death sentence, because he has,
300
How
men.
many sold? 300 men against how many hundreds of thousands did she bring? I mean, I forget how big that army is.
It's a lot.
Hundreds of thousands, but it's a lot.
And then as part of the baggage between the two men, when he does defect to go join Egwene's team, it's a big part of the baggage between them. And Bryn's like, seems like I might have gone a little wrong with you.
Oh, that's right, because he did. So Gawyn did lead the army against Gareth Bryn's troops. He did kill a bunch of them. He did harass them and harangue them for a long time.
Gareth Bryn was like, Gareth Bryn says at one point, I was starting to suspect a spy because the enemy commander was so good at anticipating my moves. I never suspected it would be you little shit.
Right. God, that just reinforces my idea that he's under compulsion to obey the Amyrlin, and he's only able to change that when he finds out that the Amyrlin is Egwene, and then he goes to her immediately. Yeah,
no, I think that either Gawyn is literally the worst or he's under compulsion.
I'm liking my compulsion theory more and more as good headcanon.
It really works, but especially the way he is here. He's just so mechanically seeking after how he can navigate the orders. It's just, there's no creativity. I think it's interesting that we get a note about how Tarna and Katarine share an Aja, but there's a certain distance and stiffness between them. If I recall correctly, Katarine is black, which would mean that they are not actually of the same Aja.
Katarine's red and black.
Yeah, they're both red. I believe Tarna is just red, whereas Katarine is actually a Darkfriend on top of that.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why there's a stiffness between the two women, even though they share the same Aja. They don't really share the same Aja.
No, yeah.
There's something about Tarna that just is picking up on the slightly off vibes about Katarine. It's subconscious, but there's something there. They're not truly on the same page. And Gawyn is having one moment of emotional intelligence, and he's spending it on this moment. This is the only moment of emotional intelligence he will have in his entire life, and he's choosing to spend it on this. Terrible decision. So Katarine has arrived only yesterday, and she won't talk to anybody. She's not integrating to the command structure. She's resisting all authority. She's not explaining herself. She's being basically suspicious as fuck, and not even trying to hide it.
Tarna becomes the new keeper when Alviarin is deposed. So Tarna is going to head back. She gets elected keeper, and then later basically travels to the Black Tower to ask Mesrim Time permission to bond warders, and ends up getting turned.
Right. So what Tarna is doing in this village is riding out secretly outside of Elida's purview to sort of organize this other trip, and kind of doing it in this village, I guess, a little bit. She's preparing for that trip to the Black Tower.
No, that's later. That's later.
Okay, so what's she doing here now? Tarna spent long hours out riding, no matter the weather, trying to find someone who could get her through into the city. So Tarna had ridden into Dorland barely a day after the mysterious army arrived.
She's returning from her trip to the Rebel Tower as an emissary.
Oh. That was back in Saladar?
Lord of Chaos.
That was in Saladar.
Yeah.
They were on the road forever since then. She totally had time to get back to... Oh, but she didn't have traveling. So she actually wouldn't necessarily have had time to get back. This is about right for her timeline for having to physically haul her meat suit across the earth on a horse. You can't control me because Elida can't possibly have intended for you to control me.
Exactly. She couldn't have given you orders to control me because she said specifically, go control the women that are under the command of Corvala. I am not under the command of Corvala. She couldn't have told you to be under to control me because she doesn't know I'm here. Therefore, you have no authority over me. That's essentially a very long way of saying, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to do what you say.
Yes, it definitely comes across with this heavy undertone of go fuck yourself.
Right.
This is definitely the delivery.
Mm-hmm.
And Tarna is still just as interested in getting to because that was what was confusing me, is like, how can she not want Elaida to know she's here and also want to get to the tower? But the first of those two statements was wrong, which is why it made no sense.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yep. And I knew exactly where you had gone wrong the first time I heard you say that, but I was having trouble articulating it because I was like, no, that's not what he's saying there.
Gotcha. Well, we got there in the end. Editing will make it seem like it was a very clever and smooth maneuver. All right. And then Gawyn gets information that if he wasn't under compulsion, should change up how he feels about things. But he gets told that Elaine is with the rebels. That's the important thing here. He suddenly gets dropped information about his sister that he has been questing after for like books and books and books.
I had no idea, and even in the beginning, I have no idea where she is. She could be anywhere, you know. Now, let's give the fact that that's wrong. She's actually back in Andor, claiming the throne right now.
But it is fair that Tarna doesn't know that. Or not Tarna.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Tarna. Because she's the one
Tarna.
who saw her.
She saw her in Saladar.
And that's why none of the other sisters could tell Gawyn that, is because literally none of them had the firsthand knowledge that Tarna does.
Because she's the only one who's been out there and back. And just because traveling has made traveling overland so stupid, she's bringing word back from something that happened so far in the past to be irrelevant because they've traveled to Tar Valon in the meantime. She's actually arrived after the people she was negotiating with.
That's ironic. She got lapped.
She did.
And then we do get one good piece of advice from Tarna. You know, first of all, Gawyn, you idiot, you never asked for this kind of information. So that's part of why you haven't been told this before. And besides, she doesn't need rescuing, even if you could manage it. Correct. None of them need your rescuing, and you can't manage it. And then we get some more mindless nationalism to the White Tower. Mm-hmm. That's the end of that. You want to pick a part of that to read out, or any more notes?
It's just, I think I have to read this because I just help me understand his logic here.
Okay.
He closed his eyes, and it was all he could do not to scrub at them with the heels of his hands. The younglings were sealed to the White Tower. No one would ever forget that they had fought on the very grounds of the tower to stop the rescue of the deposed Amyrlin. For good or ill, the tale would follow them to their graves. He was marked by that as well, and by his own secrets. After all that bloodshed, he was the man who would let Suan Sanche walk free. More importantly, though, Elaine bound him to the White Tower, and so did Egwene Alvear, and he did not know which tied the tighter knot, the love of his sister or the love of his heart. To abandon one was to abandon all three, and while he breathed, he could not abandon Elaine or Gawyn. You have my word that I will do all I can, he said wearily. What does Elaida want of me? How does the first bit of the paragraph lead to the final statement? I don't understand how, I'm tied to the White Tower through them, therefore I have to do what Elaida wants. When he knows she's with the rebels who are rebelling against Elaida. He knows Egwene is with the rebels. I don't know if he knows Egwene is with the rebels.
He doesn't.
No. Okay. That's right, he doesn't.
This is him learning about Elaine, and it's super out-of-date information, and Egwene wasn't part of that initial encounter. Mm-hmm. So, because she was en route from the Aiel when Tarna was in Saladar. So, yeah, he doesn't know. It's the...
I think it's the logic of someone finding a reason to follow what they have to follow. He is compelled to follow the Amyrlin seat. He has to find some sort of logic. And this is the logic that he's finding. I mean, it's either that or he's just really dumb.
No, I mean, he's not particularly intelligent, but he's confused. He's going through a mental pretzel to make things make sense that don't make sense. It's because the thing is that he has staked every decision he's made on believing in the authority of Tower law. That's the fundamental place that he starts, right? Is that Swan was deposed legally, and therefore the coup is illegal, and that's where it all starts. So every decision he's made falls out from the premise that the Tower is correct, and whatever the legal bureaucracy has rubber stamped and put with their letterhead is the thing that supports the tower. Now, he also is terrified for these two women that they will be punished by the tower. The only way he can see for them to not be lethally punished by the tower is to accept that they are innocent lambkins that were led astray and will be given clemency according to tower law, which means he has to infantilize them, and he has to follow through with supporting the tower more than ever to justify any of that making sense. Best I got. I hate it.
That's some tortured logic.
It is the logic of a bigot who cannot see out of their own navel. It is the logic of someone who can't breathe long enough to understand they have internal biases. It is garbage logic. And it makes sense for someone who's, 20, 21. That's how old he is. So,
yeah.
I mean, having been that person like only a decade ago, give or take, I did not think Gawyn was as much of an idiot 10 years ago as I do now. So,
yeah. Well, can we say fuck Gawyn? Like,
fuck
seriously,
Gawyn.
Fuck Gawyn. He should have gone to the rebels right then.
Yeah, he should have been like, well, in that case, if my sister is with the rebels, I'm gonna have to go neutral on the party that wants to murder me. I won't rebel against you yet. I'm gonna hold my judgment. But the part where you literally hate me and my sister is rebelling, I think I'm gonna just pull my chips out of the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a bit of a misplaced loyalty on behalf of the younglings, but we see how quickly he shrugs that off. Yeah,
he walks away from them with no, you can't say youngling loyalty had anything to do with that.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's pure and utter nonsense. And the only thing I can say is that we torture ourselves when we try to make it all make sense and stay right. The most powerful thing you can do as a young person is to admit that you are wrong at a deep and personal level, and Gawyn is never going to reach that point. He's never going to question.
He can't do it.
He has a whole conversation with Bryn where Bryn's like, you need to have that moment with yourself, and Gawyn's like, well, you're an old fuck and I don't give a shit. It's really frustrating. Gawyn.
Same thing is true of his hatred of Rand, right? He's convinced Rand killed his mother, and it's like, no, she didn't. That was one rumor once. Because you believe it, you're never going to listen to any bit of counterfactual evidence whatsoever.
Even from your sister, even relevant to your sister, the most trustable source of all people, even more than your dream lover, your sister. And it's just not good enough because some random old man told him a rumor one time. Because again, I think Gawyn stakes all these bad decisions on bad premises. And when you make a really terrible decision with real consequences on a bad premise, you have to double down. You have to double down. This is why when people get called out on shitty behavior, they're like, not only was that not shitty behavior, it's shitty of you to think it was shitty behavior. And around it goes. He's emblematic of so many of the traps that we find ourselves falling into occasionally. And that makes us idiots sometimes. And he just does it constantly and therefore is an idiot the whole time. I'm just going off on Gawyn today, aren't I?
Yeah. And with that, we have caught up with the end of Path of Daggers. We have caught up with the end of Path of Daggers in this prologue.
Yeah, that was prologue part 2 of 3. We will be back next week with our final prologue segment. And then we'll get into our source cleansing hybrid chapter nonsense.
And then the cleansing, I cannot wait to get to the cleansing.
That's going to be real
This
fun.
delay is killing me, but I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah. Also, as a teaser, Morgan has invited herself back to the podcast. We will be sorting out the details, but it is in work, just for everyone out there who does in fact love Morgan and want her to come back to the podcast. She's coming.
I'm one of them. Yep.
First with the light. life updates. How have you been, Seth?
I have been, I would call it sick. Yeah, that's the word. I've been very sick. I have been, I worked one day last week and I was not feeling well that day. And by the time I got home, I was feeling very not well. And I proceeded to leak from both ends for the next 4 days. Yeah, vomiting, diarrhea, just miserable norovirus type body pain, unable to eat solid foods, barely able to stay hydrated. I don't know how much of that people want to hear, but I have been very sick to the point where I've lost about 10 pounds in, 6 days.
Dude, that's bad. When I was not eating from my mouth being screwed up, I lost a pound a day.
Yeah.
You're saying you lost 2?
Yeah.
Almost.
Just about.
Ooh.
Just about 2 pounds a day.
Ow.
So it's just I couldn't keep anything down and everything was going right through me. So,
right. You can't even have the water to keep you constituted. Mm-mm. You're literally desiccating and losing. Oh, oof, that's rough.
I was about a day from going into the emergency room to get some IV fluids, right? I was at that point where I was like, I'm really, this is as sick as I've been, I think.
That's bad.
Since, but yesterday I started to feel better. And today I feel fine, other than being pretty tired. And
I imagine rather hungry for a bunch of weird salty stuff.
Yes. Oh my God, I ate a whole jar of pickles. That was the first thing I ate was a whole jar of pickles. Absolutely. I was like, this is great. So, and I think it was, never got sick as well, but she was only down for about a day and a half, I should say. Mm-hmm. And then she kind of bounced back pretty quick. So I was down for quite a bit longer. So
you had someone to take care of you as it was getting really bad.
So exactly.
You rode out the normal wave together and then she got fine and you kept going and at least you had someone there for you. Do you want another cup of tea to just sort of think about?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of things that were made, like bowls of white rice and saltine crackers that were laid out around me. And I'd take one little nibble of a corner and I'd be like, okay, nope, can't do it.
Yeah. It's just water just so that way your stomach has something to be doing all that clenching around rather than clenching on itself. I have learned this from chronic hangover time. You want to drink water just for ease. If you have to just be sick, then. But oh man, I'm glad you're feeling better.
And Never's mom is a doctor, so she calls her mom and says, what do we need to do and how, I have a doctor giving unofficial family advice, which is actually really convenient to be she made sure to buy me Pedialyte, versions of Pedialyte and Gatorade, and made sure I was eating the right things and all that kind of stuff. So
doctors in the family are handy.
Yeah, it was nice to have someone to take care of me. That's really handy. It's really handy, especially when they can just,
But generally, doctors know how to deal with the all-purpose, am I dying or am I just sick?
Right.
Do I just need to drink water with some Gatorade?
Exactly.
Or is this red flags?
But that's why I say I was literally a day from going into the emergency room, at doctor's advice, basically. It's wait another day or so, but after that, it's
dehydration will start.
Dehydration's a problem. Yeah. And I was feeling hungover. That feeling you get when you hang over because you're just dehydrated. That was the feelings I was getting every morning. And I was I'm not hungover.
Right.
I'm just very dehydrated.
Yeah, that feeling caught up to me after about a week in my whole mouth thing. I did actually have a morning where I just suddenly felt very, very hungover when I had empirically not drunk anything. And that was when I was wow, okay, I think I need to start feeding myself better because it's been a week and apparently a few sips of smoothie and opiates is not going to cut it for another day. Yeah, hydration's important.
Yeah, but that's what I've been doing. And really nothing else.
Well, that sounds delightful and fun. I was having a great week. Everything was going great.
Right. I there was something about car trouble.
Yeah, so for reasons that do not bear going into, because my God, is it tedious, we had to make a long-ass trip up the coast today, which was beautiful and lovely. My favorite section of the coast in the whole Oregon coast is that section. And on the way home, we're almost home. Everything's been done. We've got everything's been done. And then the car just decides to stop working. Just lights start, like the radio goes out, a weird light comes on, and the power steering goes. And so pull over to a very conveniently broad spot on the side of the road. It's like a normal fishing pullout. Diagnose it. Apparently the alternator just
shot.
Just decided that it wasn't working anymore for no fucking reason. And we had, 20 minutes of battery that we ran on, and then we didn't have a car. So, and of course we were far enough close to home that we were in the cell dead zone, because we live in really narrow canyon type topography. So there's no cell service, for 20 plus miles around where we are. Of course we can get radio out. Of course I have a radio, but we can't call insurance on the radio. You can't call AAA on the radio. That's not an option. So we ended up, at first we thought about walking to a house to be like, hey, can we use your phone? But Brandon's foot is super screwed up from an injury he got last spring. So walking a long distance isn't really an option, at all. So we ended up deciding to just hitchhike to get home. And the first people that pulled over, actually, once we decided that that's what we were going to do, they were actually headed the other way, but they saw, hood up and two people standing there looking like it's a pretty universal signal, right?
Yeah. Hi, we're fucked. Please help somebody.
We need somebody. So they decided to turn around and give us a ride home, even though it was back the way they had just come, because they had just come from a Bible study and they were feeling all hopped up on Jesus. And then we gave them a big old sign from Jesus that they were on the right track, because they mentioned that they really like going to A&W for a treat on Tuesdays after their Bible study, which was where they were headed to town to go to the A&W. And Brandon had, while he was at the thrift store getting another pair of crutches because his foot is screwed up, been given a gift card, a little card, a buy one, get one off combo, something at A&W from the cashier, because some customer had given it to the cashier, but the cashier couldn't accept it. So they had to pass it on to Brandon. But Brandon and I, we never go to A&W. So it's just in his pocket. And then these people who were absolutely going out of their way to help us out are we love going to A&W. Brandon's well, here you go. So it's they got an extreme confirmation that Jesus approves of what they're doing, basically.
The wheel weaves. Taviran.
I can't argue with it, I'm fine, you know what? I'm just gonna smile and nod and be super happy for you that you were at Bible study, even though inside I am crawling and dying. And at a church that we often make fun of when we drive past it, just because it's a local church. And now I have to feel 1% less antagonistic because apparently two of them are kind of cool. I have a problem with Christians. Can you tell? Anyway.
You're preaching to the choir.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my day. So we got home in time, and obviously it didn't happen on the coast, which would have, really sucked. Certain sections of the coast are literally a cliff. This is Highway 101, This is a very, very cliffside kind of, because we didn't want to have to drive over to the valley, because that would have meant going up and over a pass, which may very well have snow on it. And there's supposed to be more inclement weather today. So we figured the coast, we don't have to go up and over a ridge, and there's not going to be snow, because it's really difficult for snow to happen at the coast. It does happen, but it's not going to happen today. So there was a bunch of places it could have happened that would have been worse. And then we get home, and as we get home, or in the car, as these people are driving us home, and so they notice Brandon grab at his pockets. And I'm that's where are my keys grab? So sure enough, we get home and he doesn't have our house keys. He left them in the car.
No, of course not.
So we're like, all right, which one of our windows is kind of screwed up so that we can break into it? And it turns out one of them actually just happened to not be locked. We were able to look through and be like, hey, wait a second, that one's not locked. Just like got in. But we had to hitchhike home and then break into our house. And now he is currently working with our friends who live one valley over to go and tow our car home. He's currently working on that. So yeah, I've had an afternoon.
So how long before the podcast started did you get back?
We got home around 2. And we got going trying to get this session started around 3:30 because you and I were like, we're not ready yet. Help.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm impressed you even got the notes done. That would have been a lot for me. I would have been really stressed out. I would have been like, I am stressed. I need to take an hour.
See, I realized as I was actually getting settled in here, suddenly the anxiety hit me. Hadn't absolutely delayed emotional reaction. Just I was absolutely just non-reactive to the entire situation as it happened. It was just like, oh yeah, this sucks. Whatever. Da, 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 da. I had no reaction.
Did you get your groceries home?
Yeah. We only had a bit of dairy that we needed to get, really. It was just one sack, but it was refrigerated stuff. It's a refrigerated bag, but still. So we can't just leave that in the car forever. That would be bad. Oh,
speaking of grocery shopping, this is a totally side tangent, but we found a place we just moved and we found a place that sells groceries near our new location. It's literally around the block. That's called the Refillery. And they will actually refill containers that you bring in and sell it by the weight.
Hell yes.
And it's a vegan store, so that limits somewhat what we can buy. But never went and restocked some of our staples, brown sugars, some flour, some other things like that.
Hippie co-op bulk section.
Yeah, totally. And it was just cheap as hell. Yes. It was amazing. She was actually able to get some things. She was comparing prices, and she was like, this saved me 75% from buying it in the store.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the way to go.
I'm excited about that because there's a lot of staples, which matters more if you cook, but I do a fair amount of cooking now that I can eat again. Yay.
Yeah, we have a very basic diet. We're very okay with eating the same foods over and over again. Guess why? But it does make for extremely
damage.
But it does make for extremely cheap eating when you can be like, oh no, we can totally eat 50 pounds of black beans. That's not a problem. We'll just buy 50 pounds of black beans in a giant sack.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an issue. So yeah, bulk is the way to go. My dad managed a bulk section in a grocery store when I was growing up. So I have lived the bulk lifestyle since long before it was cool. So long before it was cool. But yeah, no, it's incredible what can happen when you just start to question the efficacy of the packaging sizes. Especially if you can use your own containers. I mean, that's always been my favorite part of co-ops is when it's no, you can totally tear your own stuff and all of that. I mean, there's definitely some cross-contamination issues that obviously all went absolutely by the wayside during the pandemic and were always a thing before because hippies are fucking gross. Honestly. Have you met hippies? Their sense of cross-contamination is something else.
I will say city hippies tend to be a different breed, I think. Slightly, maybe? I don't know.
Not
this place is pretty clean.
Where I grew up.
That's fair, but this place is pretty clean. They kept it clean. Right? They must know. I think they're going around. It was also pretty small.
Yeah, that helps. That helps.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you said that's really close to where you live?
Yeah, that's literally, on the block. If we just go around the block, it's on our
So do
block.
they have like an alternative transportation punch card where when you come using not a car and you do it 10 times, you can get 10% off your next order?
I don't think so.
Because the co-op next to where I lived when I was in university totally did that. And I took so much advantage of it. It was
I don't
awesome.
even know if this place is a co-op. I think it's just a store.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a co-op at all. This is what's so weird about it is it's not a co-op. It's got a lot of the ideas that come from co-ops, I'm sure, but I think someone just bought the space and is making money off of it.
How Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very Portland. I could be wrong. I should look it up and correct myself on a future podcast.
Thanks for posting the somebody's opinion S number 5 Wheel of Time parody in the chat, Zool. I will include that in the show notes because it will be a therapeutic palate cleanse for everybody to watch Bodhi and his kids dancing around. It's so cute. Okay, so Super Skylake is asking, how are the Aja heads way more forward-thinking than the rest of them? Their Aes Sedai too. It always felt really weird that they knew each other without the rest of the Aes Sedai figuring out who the heads are too. Maybe they have a secret gesture the way the Black Aja do or something. It always felt like a weird detail that was passed over and over and over. I completely agree. It feels like a conspiracy we should have had addressed. I totally agree. Wait, what just got posted in my chat? Scroll up. Sure, did the align. My brain is now broken. This is excellent. I will also be linking this in the show notes. Apparently, Cadswain saying "fa" is a thing that exists now. Satisfied. Do it again. Oh my God. Why is she so like this? Oh my God. So just, yes. Yes, sure. I am satisfied. Do it again. Dude, go watch this video.
I saw it.
Amazing.
I don't know if that's what it would actually sound like, but
I am satisfied regardless.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hi, Timber's here. Hey, buddy. Come on. You want to show off to the camera?
Show off to the camera, buddy. Actually, can't see you because my phone is mad at how much battery running Zoom takes. And my microphone plugs in through the power thing. So I've allowed the screen to. And bye-bye.
Oh, well, I got Timber sitting in my lap right now.
No. Good boy.
He's such a happy boy. Yeah, GoFundMe was great. GoFundMe got me some money when I had to do his knee surgeries.
Oh, yeah.
It really helped me out.
Yeah, because our
I really appreciate everybody who helped that out. That was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, there was Allie and Gus had their dog really sadly have to pass away quickly. And apparently the humane shelter where they got him, because they said, hey, if everyone, if you liked hearing our dog on the podcast, donate to the shelter we got him from. Apparently they got inundated with donations. They were like, whoa, those donations are flooding in honor of your dog. Like, what happened?
They're like, oh, we have a bit of platform.
Yeah. We like supporting each other in good times and bad.
Especially in bad when people need it, I think. It's important to rally together. Yeah.
But then also in good, because Wat Idol, guys, remember Wat Idol is happening. And there is still time for you to get a submission in. The deadline is April 3rd, I believe. And we have a submission in the works.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. Because I've been so sick, I haven't had time to...
I messaged Seth, these things are happening. He's like, I'll think about it later.
Yeah, I was literally I can't even. What surprised me most about how sick I was is how tired I was. I'd get up and walk to the kitchen and do a couple of dishes and feel like I'd just worked out for 2 hours. I had no strength left in my limbs. It was crazy.
That's rough.
Yeah, no, it was because I think a bit of just lack of nutrition from not eating, and combined with just my body trying to fight the sickness.
Yeah, no, when you're not eating and dealing with something, existing becomes a Herculean effort.
You should turn on your camera if you can, because Timber's being ridiculously cute right now.
Oh, buddy.
He's got the hand up on my shoulder. He's sitting up right in my lap.
Yeah.
He's very cute.
He's such a sweetie.
Yeah, hi, buddy. You want to get down? Okay, come on. Let's get you down. All right. Okay, let's get back into this. Oh. I lost my headphone cord. I can't hear anything.
Excellent.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?